How I first got into cards would have been when I was in primary school, middle block, which puts me at about 8 or 9. Pokemon came out, which was quite a big thing, and I'm just talking like the show, and then the cards came with about a couple of months after. So everyone was into them, and that was the big thing, you know. It wasn't Beyblades, it was Pokemon.
You teach me and I'll teach you Pokemon. Gotta catch 'em all. Gotta catch 'em all. Pokemon.
I was sort of on the sideline going, oh yeah, Pikachu, blah blah blah. And my parents wouldn't let me get any. My grandmother took me out one weekend to help her with some chores and like dusting things and all sorts of crap. And she took me to Toy World, and she said to me, you can get 2 things. So I was like, well, now's my opportunity. So I grabbed a starter deck Overgrowth, which is the water and like leaf nature deck thing with shiny Gyarados and Beedrill. And I got 1 Pokemon base set booster pack, which luckily had a holographic Zapdos in it, which was quite a rare card, still is. Hit school with those cards, and all of a sudden I was one of the boys and one of the girls, because everybody was into it, and started from there. And it was quite lucrative because you could trade, like, you know, Zapdos 1 card for like a stack of cards that big. So I started to make the equations in my head that I could just grow my collection from, you know, maybe $40 back in those days worth of cards to maybe $200 in a week. My favourite Pokemon was Jigglypuff, and that wasn't released in the first set, it came out in the second, so I was a bit disappointed, but I ended up trading my Zapdos for some Dragon Ball Z cards and some Pokemon cards, about yay big of Pokemon and about that many Dragon Ball Z when that came out. And yeah, that's sort of what kicked it all off, really. Now I own upwards of 150,000 cards, and that's covering mostly Duel Masters and Yu-Gi-Oh! Being the bulk, weighing in at about 60,000 cards each, just for those sets. And then the other 30,000, there's at least 10,000 miscellaneous, so all those Rugby Sanitarium cards, all the Bluebird cards, Eater cards. I even collect the Tazos as little circular discs back in the day, and all sorts, Star Wars cards, Lord of the Rings cards, whatever else doesn't come under trading card game. I've collected at least 10,000 of them just in the course of my collecting per se. Rayquaza, which those of you that have younger siblings probably will be able to ask them when they get home, do you know what Rayquaza is? And they'll probably tell you you're an idiot and that it's the best card ever. Well, this is a Rayquaza Star card, which is a legendary card. There's probably, if you open 500 packets, you'd be lucky to get 1. Favourite set of random cards would be my collection of Charizards, which took some time, a few years, to actually piece them together. There's different types, so you can get this Charizard. Most people know, that are from my generation, know how rare it was to have one. Back in the day it was the sort of, you know, you'd trade your stack of cards that big for the 1 card, Charizard. And I've accumulated a few. But otherwise, if we're talking a set that was released and manufactured, the original Pokemon base set is by far my favourite set of cards, because that's what actually started me off, and that was all I knew back then, and to complete it years later was still quite satisfying. And a pretty important part of collecting cards is protecting them, like your really rare cards. So this one here is about a $40–50 card called Billion Degree Dragon. You do not want this to get bent in half or even scratched or anything, because it will not be worth as much if that were to happen. The case this is in is called a top loader. Basically it goes over the top of a card. Top loader. So they're not hard to understand. You've got the sleeves, card sleeves, they're a little bit thin, but they help house your cards so that when you play, if you had a stack of cards that were just plain like this, so they're not in any cases, you put them into some cases and they'll turn into something like this. So that's a deck that I regularly play with, and it's all cased so that they don't get damaged, and they're really easy to shuffle because otherwise cards can stick together, and this makes it easier, and they just look more presentable, tidy and clean when you've got the cases. It sounds a bit nerdy to put cases over cases, but if you've got a $50 card, you might as well. My favourite card game is the Yu-Gi-Oh! Trading card game, which I was obsessed with the show, like many people from my generation. It came out on TV when I was in college. The card game came along and it was perfect. I first got introduced to the cards yet again because I didn't have much money to buy them myself. I bought some whilst I was in Australia at the Sydney airport, and I came back to find that my cards are actually worth something, and I thought, oh no, I don't want to start collecting another thing. Anyone can play it. That's probably my favourite thing, is young, old, stupid, smart. It's got so many elements and it's a malleable game. You can make it to your style, you can have a deck that you like to run and that sort of mirrors your personality. So if you're a bit of a rough person, you might run dragons, or if you're a bit of a nice person, you might run fairies or light cards. And yeah, everyone has their own sort of thing that they like to run, and it's a really fun game to play. How many booster boxes I've opened at one time? Probably upwards of 20, which sounds ridiculous, but kind of small at the same time. The reason that was because I had imported so many Duel Master boxes, I just didn't care. I opened them, I was like a kid in a candy store, I couldn't stop smiling. I don't know anyone that can say they've done the same thing. And then when I imported more Yu-Gi-Oh cards, I probably opened maybe 5 cases, which is about $2,000 worth of different things. And that would have been maybe 10 to 20 booster boxes at once, but I kept the rest and sold them in bulk to people here. So yeah, the most I probably opened at once is 20 times 24, which is like 480 packets of cards, so basically 500 packets in one sitting, which was amazing. It was an amazing feeling. Thousands of dollars, hundreds of dollars worth of cards, thousands. So yeah, pretty funny. Those of you that are from New Zealand will remember the old Oddbods cards, which come in a really cool folder that sort of opens up into that sort of thing. So I mean, some of this stuff brings back memories for people, and you know, I bought this whole collection, which is worth maybe $40, $50 for under $10 on Trade Me. And so there's card games for pretty much anything. Buffy the Vampire Slayer, 24, Prison Break, Lost, Heroes, Poker People, you know, Pokemon, Duel Masters, Digimon, Star Wars, Lord of the Rings, anything you can think of, they've probably released a card game or card format of it. There's Britney Spears cards, Small Soldiers, the old movie Small Soldiers, which I love. The TV series Jericho, I hope to get some of them. And as I mentioned earlier, The Walking Dead is probably the newest craze. The future of my collection, I hope that I can get rid of a lot of the stuff I don't need, because it drives my parents nuts. having so much stuff and so many cards, always, you know, piles and piles on the bloody kitchen bench and that sort of thing. But they realise that it is part of my income, it's part of something I enjoy, so they're actually pretty tolerant. But obviously when there's more cards coming in, they sort of think, hang on, we haven't seen you sell any for a while. And yeah, so hopefully I can just keep collecting and finish all the sets that I've sort of started now, and just keep funding it by selling cards. I really enjoy doing that. So.